I'm going to introduce photorealism, sometimes called hyperrealism, but nevertheless, it's the genre of painting where you look at the painting and you go, I can't believe that's a painting. It looks like a photograph. So here's one example. Ralph Goings does paintings of things you might find in a diner, everyday objects, really focusing on the mundane here. Audrey Flack is focusing on objects you might find in a vanity or in a domestic space like a bedroom. And Chuck Close focuses on portraiture. Now, with all three of these photorealists, there isn't really a deep meaning behind any of these paintings, or we're not learning anything particularly about the artist. So there's not a lot of emotion in these. The goal of photorealism was to use photographs as a tool for painting and to be able to mimic them in a way that was so lifelike. So they're really exercises in craft and about technical achievement more than anything else. For some people, they might look at these paintings and think, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And there are others that maybe argue that at what point are they maybe too real, that they stop feeling like a painting. In other words, if I were to take a photo of my face, photocopy it, and then show you the photocopy and say, this is my artwork, you would say, I don't think that's a piece of fine art, that's just a copy of a photograph. And so with photorealism, because the end result is like a photograph, some people argue that it's too real almost to be a fine art painting. Now, wherever you stand is totally valid and fine, and you might have some reasons for it, but I want to explain a little bit about how this genre came to be and what came before it that influenced it. In the 1940s, we have abstract expressionism, where artists were moving away from representational work, meaning things that you can identify like still life and portraiture. It was about action painting, about gestural painting, about making pieces that are more intuitive and free and really filled with emotion and just whatever the artist is experiencing in the moment. And so abstract expressionism is abstract, as the name says, and it's expressionistic. Then in the 50s, so around the same time, just at the tail end, artists like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein are asking, well, why do we have to use still lives and apples and skulls and wine bottles and nude people to make fine art? Why can't we just use commercial products, the things that are coming out of our grocery stores and the things that we're using in our everyday life? And so pop art focuses on popular culture, things that are in our everyday lives, and makes those into quote unquote fine art. If we're looking at Andy Warhol's tomato soup, it's a great example of taking a commercial item and then putting it in a fine art space. Then in the 60s, we have minimalists who are saying, well, if we can use commercial objects in things like paintings, then why can't we use commercial practices and machinery to make our artworks? Meaning, does the artist's hand have to be in the piece for it to be a piece of art? Can I use industrial methods to make things that are simple, clean, and beautiful? And out of that, then comes photorealism in the 60s. And what's interesting is even though they look totally different than pop art and minimalism, in some ways there are some similarities. Photorealists were using the camera as their technology. And so like the minimalists, they're using a piece of technology to help with the creation of a piece of art. But at the same time, they're not focused on a deep meaning. They're not focused on these sort of more elite subject matter forms, ways of telling stories and giving messages. So they're kind of like the pop artist in how the pop artists weren't really concerned with meaning. They were just concerned in exploring their everyday life. And that's what photorealists are really doing. They're using a piece of technology and their skill of painting to depict everything that's around them at that time. If you're a little concerned about what our project is going to be, don't be concerned. We are going to make a C.J. Henry inspired mini project. C.J. Henry is a contemporary artist. She's Australian, I believe, and she makes these huge color pencil drawings of paint blobs. And there's nothing deep about this. This isn't communicating. This isn't making some sort of stance on a social issue. They are purely technical achievements. And so I felt that she was the perfect artist to sort of wrap up our color pencil exploration for this unit.